Hey guys, tonight we unfold something strange, and maybe a little too fragile for daylight. Dust swirls through the air like powdered ghosts, and you're standing in an apartment on Rue de Trois Frères, Montmartre. The place is gutted, floorboards exposed, a thin, cracked wall being peeled open like a centuries-old secret. Your flashlight's weak beam catches a shimmer. Not gold, not jewels, just something papery, worn, pressed flat behind decades of plaster. And just like that, your night becomes a cold case nobody asked you to solve. Now, quick reality check. Finding a 60-year-old letter hidden inside a sealed Parisian wall? Super romantic. Until you realize you're also standing under a ceiling that may or may not collapse, with pigeons audibly judging you through the rafters, and a note in your hand that could possibly haunt you forever. You probably won't survive this, but hey, better you than drywall, right? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Paris is somewhere between twilight and memory right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You kneel down, gently, like the air here deserves respect. The letter is brittle, folded tightly, sealed with what was once blue wax. Now it's gray, ash gray. You brush away the crumbling plaster dust and sit back on your heels. The contractor's already left. You're alone in the apartment except for a hammer, an espresso cup, and a truly upsetting amount of black mold in the corner. Your fingers tingle as you slip the wax loose.
No perfume.
No address.
No sender.
But there's a single name etched delicately on the front. Elise. Just Elise. No last name. No date. You pause, because the handwriting isn't shaky. It's careful, like the writer knew someone else would read this. Not then, but someday. You unfold it. The paper resists slightly, then gives in. For pages, written in French, mostly cursive, some words blotted. The first line hits like a whisper in a cathedral. If anyone ever finds this, I beg you, tell them I didn't run. I was taken. You don't breathe for a second. You flip through the rest. No address, no real clues, just memories. Desperate ones. References to the door that closed twice. A man with smoke instead of eyes. And something about the last Thursday in July. The final page is stained. A drop of something dark. Could be ink. Could be blood. You read the signature. Elise B. July 26, 1962. A name. A date. And that's it. You glance around the gutted room like maybe it holds an answer. Instead, it offers you a chill. Mainstream fact? Montmartre, during the early 1960s, was undergoing significant shifts. Bohemians were being priced out. Nightclubs were either gentrifying or getting darker. And the criminal underbelly was cleverly masked in jazz and absinthe. Fringe tidbit? A local myth from the neighborhood claimed certain buildings could trap days. Hours that would repeat within their walls for those who lived or died within them. More poetic than paranormal. Unless you found the evidence tucked in plaster. Historians still argue whether letters like this are real records or crafted myths designed to confuse future generations. But here you are, reading one. You take a shaky breath and glance around the room again. Nothing else. But one wall does look newer than the others. Replastered, repainted, covered in wallpaper that doesn't match the rest. You knock. Hollow. You press your ear to it. Nothing. But your pulse answers anyway. You pocket the letter. You leave the room. And for the first time all day, the hallway seems longer than before. You exit the apartment and step into the Montmartre night, where the cobblestones sweat a little under the lamplight and the air smells like baked bread, lavender, and unresolved mystery. The letter stays warm in your pocket, warmer than it should be, considering it's been sealed behind a wall since the Beatles were still playing basement gigs. The street below is quieter than it was this morning. Paris doesn't sleep exactly, it shifts. The daytime city is performance. The night version? That's rehearsal. And right now, you feel like the only one in the audience. You find a bench under a crooked street lamp and take the letter out again. Still surreal. The date? July 26, 1962. You try to remember what you know about that year. French politics, Cold War tension, Charles de Gaulle and the looming Algerian war legacy? All very dramatic. But none of it helps with a letter that reads like a slow-motion kidnapping confession whispered to the walls. You reread the lines, trying to decode them. I didn't run. I was taken. He followed me past the cafe again. The tunnels are colder than I remembered. Tell my sister I left the key in the music box. The first question, of course, is, who the hell was Elise B? You grab your phone. Low battery. Of course. You do a quick search anyway. Elise B. Missing Paris, 1962. A few scattered articles. No obvious hits. Then, a tiny link buried deep on a French archival forum. A missing person poster. Digitized. Black and white. Just a face and a line.
Disparu le 28 juillet 1962.
Disappeared 2 days after the letter. And the photo? It's her. Same eyes. Same hair pinned just a little off-center. Like she could never decide between rebel and housewife. You zoom in. There's a strange black smudge in the background of the photo. Almost looks like smoke. You try enhancing it. Doesn't help. Just makes it weirder. The caption includes a full name. Elise Beecham. That's your girl. Disappeared from her apartment in Montmartre, 1962. No sign of struggle. No known enemies. No body. Vanished. Except now, 62 years later. She's whispering to you from the seams of a sealed wall like a forgotten ghost who still wants her story told properly. You get up from the bench, not entirely sure where you're going, but certain you're not going to bed tonight. Instead, you follow the letter's clues. He followed me past the cafe again. You open your map. There are dozens of cafes in Montmartre. But you remember something odd from earlier. A cafe down the block with a mural of a blue door on the wall. Nothing unusual until you realize it matches a phrase in the letter. The door that closed twice. You head there. Still open, barely. Lights low, only one table occupied. The place feels like it's been here forever. Small tiles on the floor, smoky mirrors, a bent coat rack no one's fixed in 50 years. There's even a rotary phone on the wall that probably doesn't ring anymore. You order espresso mostly to justify your presence. You ask the waiter quietly if he's ever heard of Elise Beecham. He pauses, then shrugs. Name rings a bell. Grandmother talked about her once. Girl who vanished, That's something. You point to the mural on the far wall, the painted door with chipped corners and brass handles. He nods. Used to be a real door there. Sealed now. People say the old basement's behind it, but it's blocked. For decades. Blocked basements. Mysterious doors. Hidden letters. You're in neck deep already. You ask if you can take a picture. He nods. Go ahead.
No flash.
You walk up to the mural. Get close. And that's when you see it. A name, barely visible, scratched into the faux brass plate. EB. Mainstream fact? The Paris metro system contains several ghost stations. Fully constructed stops that were abandoned due to low use or budget cuts. Some were later sealed off or repurposed during World War II and never reopened to the public. Fringe tidbit? A persistent urban myth claims a secret sixth level below the metro exists, used for Cold War espionage. Some say people who wandered down there during renovations never came back. Not because of military secrets, but something else. Something that watched. Historians still argue whether city legends are just urban storytelling, or if they're functional memory, left behind when the paperwork doesn't survive. You head back into the street, the mural still flickering in your mind. She wasn't just writing a goodbye. She was leaving a map. And you've just taken the first step. The street narrows as you leave the cafe, buildings pressing in like shoulders in a crowd. Montmartre doesn't have alleyways so much as intentions. Tight corridors between old lives, where secrets get stuck between bricks. And Elise's story? It's officially wedged between this world and the last. You keep walking. There's a strange pull in your chest. Not unlike the feeling when you forget a word mid-sentence but know it's about to come back to you. That's what she feels like now, half memory, half hint, something hovering just out of reach. Your phone buzzes weakly before dying completely. Dead battery, dead ends. Perfect. You duck into a 24-hour epicery and buy a portable charger. The clerk says nothing, but watches you a little too long. It's a look you've started to recognize on this trip. The look of someone who knows more than they say, especially about things they shouldn't. Back outside, you sit on a stoop to let your phone charge. You scroll back through your photos. The missing poster, the scratched initials on the mural, the paragraph from the letter. They saw me at the metro again. I didn't go in, I wasn't followed underground that time. But next time I will be. You freeze. It's the word again that catches you. She'd gone missing before. You search deeper. Elise Beecham disappearance 1950s. And there it is. A line from an archived local paper. Girl briefly missing in 1957 returns home. Says she was just wandering. It's her. You find a grainy photo. Same face, just younger and scared. The article's only 2 paragraphs long. No follow-up.
No explanation.
Just this chilling quote. It was like I was outside of time. Nothing changed, but everything had. You lean back. She didn't vanish once. She vanished twice. And the second time, she didn't come back. Mainstream fact? In the 1950s and 60s, Parisian police kept detailed missing youth files, often dismissing short disappearances by girls as romantic escapism or family disputes. Those case files rarely made it past the precinct, much less public record. Fringe tidbit? A declassified Cold War French intelligence memo from 1959 referenced young women appearing briefly in restricted zones, then disappearing again before questioning.
The memo was titled, cryptically, Apparition dans les quartiers fermés.
Historians still argue whether urban legends like the Phantom of Pigalle were just cautionary tales about girls out too late, or rooted in something far stranger that authorities refuse to acknowledge. You stare at the street. She was taken once, returned, and taken again, or maybe returned herself. And now a thought forms, a whisper at the edge of your mind. What if the letter isn't just a goodbye? What if it's a warning? You decide to retrace her last known movements. There's a street mentioned in the police report Rue Houdon. She was seen there late at night by a shopkeeper walking alone. The man told police she looked wrong, like her clothes weren't quite from the right time. You head there. It's not far, just a few blocks, but the atmosphere thickens with every step. Rue Houdon is lined with shuttered storefronts, old doors with keyholes you could fall into, and one barber shop that claims to be appointment only, but hasn't changed its sign in 30 years. You walk slowly, and then you see it. A building under renovation.
Exterior scaffolding.
Dumpster full of plaster, and one window slightly open, even though no one's working. You move closer. In the glass reflection, something flickers. You spin around. Nothing. You look back. The window's closed now. Of course it is. You step back into the center of the street and take it all in. This is where she was last seen. Not where she disappeared, but where she started vanishing. She came back after her first disappearance. But she wasn't the same. Her sister said so in the police interview you skimmed. Elise didn't blink enough. She kept asking what year it was. She said time felt loose. Time. Again. Always time. You opened the letter and read the last paragraph again. I remember things I haven't lived. I dream in languages I don't know. Tell them I didn't run. I was taken again. You sit on the stoop across the street and let that settle in. Taken again. So the first time, was it a mistake? Or a test? Or worse, was it invited? The clouds above shift and someone walks past you, muttering something under their breath. You glance up, but they're already gone. You stay there a few minutes longer, and then decide. You're going underground. You descend into the Paris metro just as the last train groans away in the distance, dragging its metallic sigh down the tunnel like a tired ghost. The station, Pigalle, is mostly empty, except for a janitor mopping in slow figure eights and a teenager half asleep on a bench with earbuds in. The stairs echo beneath your steps, not just from your shoes but from something else, like memory maybe, or regret. The tiled walls glisten under fluorescent lighting that flickers at every third breath. You can smell dampness in the grout, faint metallic dust, and the sharp whiff of urine trailing from some long-forgotten corner. All very glamorous, but your eyes are fixed on the map, the official map, and the unofficial one. You pull out the copy you printed from an obscure blog, the one that tracks ghost stations, abandoned lines, tunnels that show up on no current Paris metro guide. One line stands out, a route Elise mentioned in her letter. If he finds me again, I'll slip through the tracks, just past St. Georges, toward the Black Stair. It's always there, even when it's not. You trace it on the old map. There's a rumored tunnel between Pigalle and St. Georges, half bricked up during construction, never demolished. Local thrill-seekers talk about it like it's a rite of passage. Some go in. Most come back. A few get quiet. You don't like that last part. But you're here now. You walk to the far end of the platform, past the warning signs, past the rusted chain half-heartedly guarding the service corridor. And then you see it. A thin, soot-darkened staircase descending at an angle that doesn't match anything on the map. The Black Stair. It exists. Of course it does. You pull out your flashlight. The moment the beam hits the wall, something flashes back, like a nail or an old coin embedded in stone. You pocket it without thinking. You begin the descent. It's tight, barely shoulder width. Each step is covered in gritty, uneven soot. You pass old graffiti, some of it in English, some in French, some in characters you don't even recognize. One phrase repeats every few steps. Elise vu.
Élise a été vue.
Elise was seen, was witnessed, or maybe Elise saw you. Charming. About 20 feet down, you find it. The tunnel. Old, cracked, unlit, but definitely walkable. You click the flashlight to full brightness and start forward. The tunnel breathes. That's the only way to describe it. You hear low rumbles like a subway train passing in the distance. But there are no tracks here. Just compacted soil, concrete ribs, and remnants of old wiring. And then you see it. A spray of red chalk on the wall. A heart. Inside it, E+B. A romantic cliché from someone else's nightmare. You keep walking. Your footsteps echo oddly, like the sound is moving in two directions, forward and behind you. You stop, turn around. Nothing. You press onward. About 60 meters in, your flashlight catches something unusual on the right wall. A small rusted door. You check the map again. There's no structure here. No junction box. No emergency access. You push. Creaks open. And inside, on a crude wooden shelf, is a cardboard box, dusty, stained. You pull it out gently. Inside, letters, 4 of them, each addressed differently, each with the same initials in the corner, EB. You open the top one. The handwriting matches the original letter, but this one is older. I came back, but it's different now. They say my room never existed. Another. They watch in pairs now. They don't blink. I don't know what year it is. The final letter is barely legible. You read it slowly. He said I had to choose this time. Remember or forget. I said, forget. But I didn't mean it. If you find this, please, tell me who I was. You sink to the floor. Your legs don't quite give out, but they're not helpful either. This wasn't just a girl who vanished. It was a girl who vanished multiple times, and every return made her less anchored. Mainstream fact: during World War II, parts of the Paris metro were used by the resistance. Informal passages, side shafts, and escape tunnels were mapped by memory, not by blueprint. Many of those were sealed or collapsed after the war. Fringe tidbit: urban explorers claim a section beneath Pigalle known as the reverse room, a small chamber where compasses spin and phones refuse to take photos. One explorer wrote that he heard a girl humming just out of sight, until he hummed back and she stopped. Historians still argue whether the Paris underground is a graveyard of secrets, or a living entity that remembers the lost better than the living ever could. You return the letters to the box, and you carry it back toward the stair. You don't run, but you don't look back either, because something in those tunnels might look back harder. You reach the surface again, just as your phone vibrates. Charged now. A new message. Unknown number. Just a single line. The music box is still in the flat. 3rd drawer. The apartment building groans as you return to it, as if mildly annoyed to see you again. You don't blame it. You're here to poke further into its ribs, into drawers that haven't been opened since the Cold War, into the private life of a woman who may not have belonged entirely to this world. The stairwell up to the 3rd floor still smells like old paint and mildew, and the same flickering wall sconce blinks once as you pass. A tired little Morse code for "still here." Inside the apartment, darkness. The contractor's tools lie exactly where they were. Coiled cord, tarped paint cans, a radio with dead batteries. Everything looks frozen, except your hand, that moves automatically now, guided not by logic but by some deeper pull. You know where the dresser is. You don't even need to think. Back to the hallway, back to the room that held the sealed wall, back to the left side of the closet, where a slim-legged mid-century vanity waits quietly. You kneel, open the top drawer. Nothing. 2nd drawer. Faded lipstick, a ration card, a dry flower. 3rd drawer, a music box, wooden, inlaid with a small silver key, and exactly where the text said it would be. Your fingers tremble slightly as you wind it. It doesn't resist. The melody begins, a delicate lullaby, one you almost recognize, but it's wrong. The notes fall in strange intervals. It's like the song's been translated by someone who doesn't quite understand music. You flip the box over. There's a false bottom. Of course there is. You pry it open with the edge of your key. Inside, another letter. This one is shorter. It's not addressed to anyone. He said I had until the next Thursday. If I stay, I lose my name. If I go, I lose my face. Either way, I'm filed wrong. Tell my sister the mirror lies. You stop breathing for a second, because this isn't just poetic. This is directional. The mirror. You glance around the room, and there it is, leaning against the wall, still wrapped in brown paper, the edges of its antique frame peeking through like an eye behind a curtain. You walk over. You tear the paper away. is cracked. A long vertical fracture runs through the center of the glass, splitting your reflection in two. You lean closer, and then you see it. Not your reflection, hers, just for a second. Gone before your brain catches up. Your heart skips a beat, because that's not how reflections work. Unless this mirror isn't a mirror. You kneel again, inspecting the frame. There, along the back edge, is an engraving nearly worn away.
Le passé revient si on écoute.
The past returns if one listens. You touch the crack. It's warm, like the paper in your coat pocket, like the letters, like memory. You back away slowly. And now you feel it. Presence. Not malevolent, but attentive. You're being read. Mainstream fact? In 19th century France, some aristocrats had mirrors made with memory curves, subtle imperfections that distorted time slightly in their reflections. It was believed that light bouncing from certain angles could carry memory or emotion. Fringe tidbit? A former tenant of a Montmartre apartment once claimed she saw her future self in the mirror. Only on Thursdays, only at dusk, and only when a particular waltz was playing from a music box. No one believed her, but she vanished one evening, leaving behind a wind-up key still turning. Historians still argue whether historical hauntings are spiritual residue, or simply the architecture of forgotten choices replaying themselves in loops. You take the music box. The mirror remains behind, watching, or waiting. You return to the living room. Your phone buzzes again. Same unknown number. New message. Her sister was Marie Claire. She worked at Archives Parisian. Try the East Annex. And beneath that, a second message appears instantly. Don't trust the photo on the badge. You sit down hard on the nearest chair. And for the first time tonight, you realize you're not the only one following this trail. The Paris Archives building rises from the Eastern District like a misfiled cathedral. Plain from a distance, but impossibly intricate up close. Columns etched with names most people have forgotten. Windows like watchful eyes. The kind of place where time is kept in boxes and memory breathes in acid-free folders. You stare up at it from across the street, the music box still clutched in your hand like a half-solved riddle. It doesn't hum anymore, but your mind does. A constant low buzz of suspicion, questions, and the echo of Elise's last, fragmented thoughts. Inside, the archives are hushed. Not quiet, hushed, as if the air's been told to behave. The receptionist glances up only briefly before returning to their keyboard. You ask about Marie Claire Beecham. The clerk frowns slightly, clicks a few times, then looks up again. She hasn't worked here in 20 years. Retired in '04. East Annex, yes, but records from then are in physical storage. You thank them and ask to be directed to the East Annex. It's a low, glassy wing attached to the main building, built in the 70s and seemingly forgotten ever since. Pale linoleum floors, fluorescent lights with a migraine attitude, and no one else in sight. You walk slowly, scanning each door. Room 2C, Room 2D, Room 2E locked. You try the handle. No give. But as you step back, something on the floor catches your eye. A badge. An old one. Faded plastic, the photo sun-bleached into near non-existence. But the name? Clear. Marie Claire Beecham. You pick it up. And just like the message said, you don't trust the photo. Because something about it is wrong. Not just the quality. The eyes. They don't look like a woman in her 60s. They look new. Alive in a way black and white never is. You pocket the badge. Pull out your phone. Try searching her again. A few old references, mostly employment listings. And then a news snippet from a 2005 newsletter. We remember Marie Claire Beecham, retired, who passed away quietly in her Montmartre home. survived by no known relatives. You go cold. Because if she died in 2005, who left you the text? And who, if anyone, just dropped her badge in front of a locked office? You take a shaky breath and sit down on a bench beneath a dusty framed photograph of Paris in the 1930s. The plaque beneath it says, "Time collapses quietly." How poetic. How unhelpful. Your phone buzzes again. New message. Same unknown number. She hid her notes in the supply duct. East Annex. Above room 2E. You stare at the ceiling. There's a vent grate about 3 feet above the door frame. You glance around. No one in sight. You grab a chair from the nearest office and stand on it carefully. The grate screws are loose. Too loose. Someone's opened this recently. Inside the vent, a file folder. You pull it out slowly. Labeled in careful handwriting, B Cycles. Inside, photos, police sketches, a timeline, all of Elise, from 1957, from 1962, and again, from 1983. You stare at the date, the handwriting, the grainy security photo of a woman outside a Montmartre bookstore. It's her. Older, but her. You flip to the next page. A chart titled Return Attempts. For dates, all ending in late July 1983. A blank one for next. You exhale. She tried to leave, multiple times, but someone kept pulling her back. You flip again. The final page is a photocopy of an envelope. Unsent. No stamp, but addressed in Elise writing. To herself. And beneath the address, to be opened when he forgets. You pocket the file. The hallway feels warmer now, as if the building knows you know. Mainstream fact? In France, personal archives of city workers are sometimes kept decades after death for legal or familial inquiries. But access is often restricted, requiring proof of relation or judicial permission. Fringe tidbit? One Parisian archivist claimed that certain files in the East Annex could only be found if you weren't looking directly for them. He called them pendulum folders, saying they swing toward need. Historians still argue whether archivists protect history, or if they choose which pieces are remembered and which are accidentally misfiled forever. You slide the file back into your coat and exit the annex. The city feels tilted now, not broken, not dreamlike, just askew like a painting hung half an inch off center. You don't know what's waiting, but you're sure of one thing. Elise didn't vanish. She looped, and if the pattern holds, you're getting close to when it happens again. The Paris dusk fades like the tail end of a long exhale, clouds draped low, orange bleeding into gray, and the whole city softening at the edges like an old photo left too long in the sun. But not you. You sharpen instead. More alert. More deliberate. Because now you know the cycle. Elise didn't disappear randomly. She disappeared repeatedly every few decades, always in July, always around the same strange set of locations. And if 1983 was her last appearance, then you're not just walking into the past. You're walking toward the next round. The letter mentioned a red light, a blue dress, and a man with smoke where his eyes should be. It sounded like metaphor when you read it, but now it sounds like directions. You head south of Montmartre, toward the neighborhood that never really stopped glowing after dark. Pigalle, still gritty, still flashing, and still whispering through its neon lights. You duck into a side street where the last working cabarets still hold court. Lou Sans Nom, Le Petit Miroir, and one more that matches something scribbled in Elise letters.
Le ruban rouge.
The red ribbon. It doesn't show up on Google Maps, but it's real. You see it tucked between a shuttered bookstore and a laundromat. Just a sliver of an entryway painted crimson, with gold-lettered windows you can't quite see through. The moment you step inside, you feel it. Old perfume, spilled gin, fabric that's outlived 3 governments. A man nods from behind a small velvet curtain, doesn't ask your name, doesn't check ID. He just says, "You're late," and lets you through. The room inside is low-lit. Red bulbs. No stage, just a space. Plush chairs. Tiny bar. And a voice singing something soft, in French, that you feel before you understand. At the center of it all, a woman, alone, sitting by the piano in a blue satin dress. She doesn't sing. She doesn't speak. She just watches you, and you realize this is her.
Élise.
Or something like her. You sit across from her slowly, the music melting into silence around you. She tilts her head, then speaks. "You brought the music box, didn't you?" You nod. She smiles like someone remembering their own name for the first time in years. "Do you have the key?" You reach into your pocket. The key's still there, still warm. You set it on the table. She doesn't touch it. "Don't wind it again," she says softly. "Not until you know what day it is." You ask the obvious question. "What day is it?" She looks past you toward the wall, where a mirror hangs, but doesn't reflect anything. Just dull silver. "If it's the right day, I disappear. If it's the wrong day, you do." She blinks once, slow. "I never meant to stay. I just forgot the way out." Mainstream fact? In the early 1960s, Pigalle was a known hotspot for underground performance art, political dissidents, and coded meetings. Several cabarets were rumored to be fronts for surveillance hubs, run not by spies, but by artists gathering stories. Fringe tidbit? A persistent Parisian rumor claims certain singers, those who perform unaccompanied, past midnight, could mark listeners. People who heard their final notes sometimes vanished within days, always without a trace. Historians still argue whether cabaret culture was merely risque entertainment or a form of living ritual, encoded with meaning far older than electricity. You ask Elise if it's really her what happened in 1962. She smiles, but it's a sad smile. "They asked me to choose. Between what?" You press. "Between forgetting and remembering. Between staying visible and becoming the story." She taps the table once. Then the light above you flickers, and she's gone. The seat across from you is empty. The piano is untouched, and the bartender at the door gives you a strange look when you walk out like you're soaked in moonlight. "Everything all right?" he asks. You nod slowly, but no, not everything is all right, because you still hear her voice, and not in your head. From your coat pocket, the music box has started humming again, by itself. Same wrong melody, only this time it's slower, like it's running out of time. You don't run, but you walk like someone who's just realized the ground under their feet might not be entirely attached to this world. The music box in your coat keeps humming, even though you never touched it again. That warped lullaby winds itself now, curling up the lining of your jacket like smoke. You cut through side streets, past shuttered bakeries and neon drugstores still pretending they're open. It's nearly midnight, and Paris is in that slow-breathing state again, where time seems to loosen just a little at the edges. You find your way back to Elise's apartment building without fully remembering how. The stairs creak louder now, not because they've aged since earlier, but because you have, just a little. That's how it works with these things. Every mystery solved carves a little more of you into the story. You reach her old bedroom. The mirror still waits, still cracked, still watching. You turn away from it quickly. Instead, you return to the vanity. The third drawer, the music box's original resting place, is still open, empty, but something about the drawer seems heavier than before. You slide it all the way out. A small metal panel shifts inside, like a hidden flap, and beneath it, A velvet pouch. You open it carefully. Inside is a delicate gold chain with a tiny key charm at the end. But not the same key from the music box. This one is smaller, more intricate, designed for something finer. A notebook? A case? You turn it over. Etched on the back are the letters MB3. And your memory clicks. From the letter, "Tell my sister I left the key in the music box." But this isn't a music box key. This is for something else. You pull out the archived file from the duct. Flip through Marie Claire's notes again. They're halfway down a page. MB3 locker. Rue Cléry Postal Depot. Never opened. Postal Depot. An abandoned one. Your flashlight's back in your coat. So is your determination. You head out into the city once more, chasing ghosts and postal codes. 20 minutes later, you arrive. The Rue Cléry Depot is boarded up, dusty, forgotten. One of those buildings that still has government stickers on the windows, peeling like dried fruit skin. You find a side gate half open. Inside, the mailroom is dark but walkable. Shelves still labeled. Lockers lining one wall. And there it is. MB3. You slide in the tiny key. Clicks. And the door swings open with a hiss of air that smells like old ink, rust, and a whisper that's been waiting far too long. Inside, a wooden box. Polished. Heavy. And on top of it, folded once, is a single sheet of paper. You read it by flashlight. It's from Marie Claire. Elise asked me to lock this away if anything ever happened to her again. I never asked questions. I just followed instructions. If you're reading this, she found a way to leave something behind. A trace. That means she's not gone, not completely. But listen carefully. Do not destroy the box. Do not wind the music again. Do not trust reflections. And whatever you do, don't follow the letter's ink trail backward. Time forgives stories, but it never forgets footprints. You open the wooden box slowly. Inside, a reel of film, old, burned at the edges. No label, just a small tag attached with twine. Final scene. Play only once. Mainstream fact? The French postal system maintained private locker archives during the 20th century, where select individuals could pay to store sensitive items for years, decades, even. Most were unclaimed and quietly destroyed during digital conversion in the 2000s. Fringe tidbit? One local tale speaks of a locker at Rue Cléry that never emptied, claiming it replenished its contents based on who opened it, and that no two people ever found the same thing inside. Historians still argue whether objects like this exist in real records, or whether they're mythologized through whisper networks of those who've stumbled into memory's blind spots. You hold the real like it's breathing, because maybe it is, and you know exactly where you need to take it. Not to a museum, not to a lab, but to the old shuttered cinema just down from Rue de Martyrs, where Elise once worked as a projectionist, and where, according to her letter's final line, she left the light running. The cinema Miroir sits like a collapsed memory between two renovated apartments. Its sign half lit, its box office long abandoned, and its entrance sealed with an ancient chain that's rusted closed, but not locked. A gentle nudge, and the chain slips off with the reluctant ease of a place that expected your arrival. You step into the lobby, flashlight slicing through dust that dances like old applause. The carpet is moth-eaten. The air smells of old velvet, carbon, and something sweetly chemical, like nitrate film just on the edge of combustion. A faded movie poster still clings to the wall. A film from 1962. No title. Just a woman in a blue dress, standing at a train station, looking back over her shoulder. No director listed. No stars. You don't need them. It's Elise. The eyes give her away every time. You push past the velvet curtain into the theater. Seats line up like soldiers asleep on their feet. The room holds a silence so thick it has a weight. And yet, at the very back is a hum. Projector. Still running. You climb the steps to the projection booth. And there it is. A vintage reel-to-reel humming softly, aimed at the blank screen below. But it's not projecting anything. Just waiting. You set down the reel you brought. Attach it. Thread it carefully the way old film demands, with patience and no sudden movements. You flip the switch. The reel begins to spin. Downstairs, on the screen, something flickers into life. First, it's just static. Then a woman walking, her back to the camera, a coat flaring in the wind. She turns slightly, and for a second, it's you. But that can't be. The image shifts again. Now it's Elise. You recognize her silhouette by instinct now. She's walking through Montmartre, alone. No music, just footsteps. A red light flickers across the frame. A doorway. She hesitates, then opens it, and vanishes inside. The next scene is the interior of a room, a mirror on one wall, a music box on the dresser. You, again. But you're not moving, just reflected. And then the mirror cracks. The screen goes white, then black, then a final image. Just a still frame. A letter. The one you found. The one you're still holding. It folds itself on screen. And at the bottom corner, a new line appears. Not handwritten. Typed. If this plays, the cycle resets. If you stay, someone else must find it next. The reel stops spinning. The hum dies. And the theater exhales. You don't know how long you stand there. Mainstream fact? In 1962, France transitioned away from nitrate-based film due to its flammability. But some cinemas, particularly private or experimental ones, ignored the ban and continued using it into the 1970s. Several fires were never officially linked. Fringe tidbit? There's a Parisian belief that certain old films store time, meaning that playing them reactivates the emotions, accidents, and echoes of the day they were filmed. Some projectionists would only screen these reels at night, alone. Historians still argue whether early cinema was art, propaganda, or an unintended form of psychic recording. You walk back down the stairs, past the quiet seats, past the curtain, back into the lobby, but it feels different now. The dust isn't floating, it's suspended, like it's watching you. The door to the street is open again, and beyond it the street is too quiet. You step outside, and for one terrifying moment, the city is unfamiliar. Street signs don't match. Cars look older. There's no Wi-Fi signal. You check your phone. Dead. Again. But not battery dead. Wrong time dead. You're not sure what year it is. But you're sure of this. The music box has stopped humming. And that might be the worst sign of all. The city isn't gone. It's just different. The street lamps cast yellower light than you remember. The sidewalks look scrubbed of graffiti. The scent in the air is less exhaust, more coal smoke. There are no modern ads on the bus stop shelter, just a faded poster promoting Galois cigarettes and a double bill at the Cinema Miroir. One of the films is from 1961. You check your phone again, just in case. Still no signal. And the screen shows 3:06 a.m. Frozen. You do the only thing that makes sense when reality's warping around you. You walk. Instinct over logic. Movement over panic. You're somewhere in the right arrondissement, but the street names don't match anything recent. Still, your feet carry you to a familiar facade. Elise Building. Except now the exterior isn't worn down and graffiti scribbled. It's freshly painted. The door isn't secured by an intercom, but by an old-fashioned bell pull. And it works. A buzz, a clunk, and the door opens slightly. No one visible, just the creak of possibility. You step inside. The wallpaper is clean. The stairs don't groan. And as you climb toward her flat, your fingers trail along the wood banister that's somehow warmer than it should be. Then you hear it. A soft, mechanical melody. The music box, playing. From inside the apartment. You hesitate because you left it with you, which means someone else is playing it now. You reach the door. It's open. And inside, the mirror is whole. Not cracked. A fire crackles in the hearth. And sitting at the vanity table is Elise. She doesn't flinch when you walk in. She doesn't look surprised. "You're late," she says softly, just as the man in the cabaret had. You glance at the music box. It's on the dresser, wound perfectly, spinning its lullaby that's finally in tune. She turns toward you, and for the first time you realize this is not the past. This is a loop. She stands and walks toward you, placing something cold in your palm. It's the small gold key again. "Take it back," she says. "I don't want it anymore." You ask her what happens next. She smiles. "That's your story now." She walks to the mirror, stares into it. Not her reflection, but something behind the glass. Something waiting. And then, softly, "He's almost forgotten." "Who?" She turns to you again. "The man with the smoke eyes. The one who asks questions backward. The one who collects names like stamps." You feel your legs wanting to back up. You don't. "You mean, someone real?" you ask. Her smile drops. "Real enough." She steps forward and places the music box into your hands. Then she says something you'll never forget. "Whatever happens, never let the mirror remember you." Mainstream fact? Many 19th century European households kept mirrors covered during times of death, believing reflections could trap a soul in transition. This tradition faded over time, but remnants remain in certain rural French customs. Fringe tidbit? A fringe study by a defunct psychology institute in Lyon recorded anomalous mirror phenomena. Images seen that had no logical source, appearing only between 3 o'clock and 3:15 a.m. They called this window lure retournée the reversed hour. Historians still argue whether mirrors preserve memory, reflect it, or fabricate it entirely. You look toward the mirror. It's glowing now slightly, like a screen. Your own reflection flickers. And Elise? Gone. No trace. Only the fire crackling. And the key still heavy in your hand. You step toward the mirror. Just once. Your reflection looks at you and smiles first. You back away. Whatever game this is, it's not finished. You leave the flat, descend the stairs, step into a city that's both yours and not yours. The Rue Cléry depot is still there, but your phone buzzes. New message. No name. Just 3 words. Room 308 waits. And beneath it, a timestamp. July 26th, 2 days from now. Hotel Aurora doesn't look haunted. That's how you know it probably is. Tucked behind Rue Oberkampf, its modest, almost charming, balcony railings wrapped in ivy. A lobby frozen in the same beige decor since the early 80s. A revolving door that takes just a second too long to complete its turn. You walk in. The man behind the reception desk doesn't even look up. He just hands you a key. Not a key card. A physical brass key on a heavy tag marked 308. You didn't give your name. You didn't ask. And he doesn't speak. Room 308 is at the end of a carpeted corridor on the 3rd floor. The hallway smells like powdered soap, sun-faded paperbacks, and something faintly citrus. The wallpaper pattern stutters as you walk, like it's been trying to rearrange itself over time. The door opens with a single, low click. Inside, a room that could be in any time. Twin lamps, a 4-poster bed, a rotary phone, heavy curtains drawn, and on the table by the window, a folded napkin. You approach it like it might explode. written on it in delicate script. If you're reading this, it's already begun. Watch the mirror. Watch the clock. If they stop together, leave immediately. You glance at the wall. Mirror. Clock. Ticking steadily. For now, you sit on the edge of the bed. Open your coat. Set the music box on the nightstand. And just like that, it opens by itself. Not the lid. The base. A compartment you hadn't noticed before. Inside, a photograph. Old. Sepia-toned. 3 people. Elise, her sister Marie-Claire, and a third figure whose face has been scratched out with careful, deliberate lines. Written on the back. He stood between us before the glass cracked. You feel something settle in the room. Not movement, attention. You glance at the mirror. Your reflection's blinking doesn't match your own. You blink once. Doesn't. You don't move. But it smiles. Only slightly. And then the clock stops. A single, quiet tick frozen mid-breath. You don't wait for the mirror to catch up. You grab the key, the photo, and the box. You run. The hallway is longer now. Of course it is. The lights stutter. The wallpaper finally succeeds in rearranging itself. Patterns reverse. Arrows point backward. You pass room 306 twice. Never 307. The elevator isn't an option. You take the stairs. Down 2 flights. 3. 4? That doesn't make sense. You burst through the exit door and find yourself, not in the lobby, in a mailroom. Rows of metal boxes. One is open. Inside it, a typed card. Loop verified. Return initiated. Witness ID you. Mainstream fact? In 1977, several Paris hotels were quietly updated to include Cold War monitoring rooms, spaces behind the walls for unseen observation. Most were sealed or forgotten by the late 1990s. Some have never been located again. Fringe tidbit? An obscure hotel ledger from 1983 records room 308 as permanently occupied, even though no one was booked that year. The name listed? B. Just B. Historians still argue whether lost guests simply disappear or become fixtures in the stories that follow them. You finally find a stairwell that leads you out, back into daylight. Somehow, it's not the same day. You check your phone. It has battery again. The date? July 25th. 1 day before Elise vanished. You've gone back. Again. And this time, you're not the only one here. Because as you step onto the sidewalk, a woman in a blue dress rounds the corner and stops. You both freeze. She's holding the music box. You're holding the key. And the loop, whether you like it or not, is looking right at you. You and Elise stare at each other like 2 halves of a sentence neither of you wrote. Complete only when read together, yet never meant to exist in the same room. The street around you forgets to breathe. A car passes in slow motion. Pigeon takes flight and doesn't flap again. Time's pulse stutters, like the universe paused to eavesdrop. She speaks first. You weren't supposed to be here yet. Her voice isn't fearful. It's exhausted, like someone who's explained the same impossible thing too many times to too many people who forgot how to listen. You lift the small golden key slightly. I think I am, you say. She nods. Of course you are. You always are, in the end. You ask her if she remembers all the loops. She shakes her head. Just the echoes, like songs you wake up humming, but don't know the words. You ask if she's ready to leave. She tilts her head. You mean this version of me? Or the others? And that's when you realize this isn't just Elise on the edge of vanishing. It's one Elise, one shard of her. The others might still be looped, trapped, waiting for their own final scene. I think, you say slowly, you left this behind. You hand her the key. She looks at it like it's radioactive, then carefully places it inside the music box. and clicks it closed. The melody doesn't start. Instead, the box hums low, mechanical, like gears aligning deep inside something that hasn't moved properly in decades. She exhales. Good. That part's done. You ask her what comes next, but she just steps back. Now you have to find room 40. You blink. What's room 40? Her eyes shift slightly, like the question frightened her. Then she says, the room they built at the end of the line. The one no one's supposed to see. You press. Where? She glances to your left, at the subway entrance. Pigalle. Of course. Always Pigalle. But this time she doesn't follow you. She backs away. Her form begins to stutter, as if caught between frames of film. She flickers, not gone, not entirely here. Then she says the last thing you expect. You're not the first to carry the key. You open your mouth to ask, but she's already gone. Not vanished, just lifted, as if she never belonged to the weight of this world in the first place. Mainstream fact? During the 1960s, a proposed Paris metro expansion project included phantom stops planned but never built. Several of these correspond to known paranormal hotspots in Paris folklore, though no official link has ever been acknowledged. Fringe tidbit? Urban myth claims that room 40 isn't a room at all, but a code name for an unfinished tunnel that intersects memory. Some say walking it backward erases your past. Others say it lets you meet the person you would have been. Historians still argue whether code-named locations like this were part of Cold War-era psychological experiments, or simply invented by citizens desperate to explain what couldn't be measured. You descend into Pigalle once more, but this time you don't stop at the platform. You jump the railing, land hard on the tracks. No one stops you. The tunnel ahead yawns open, dark, damp, and very much off the map. But ahead, about 50 meters in, a faint blue light flickers. Not LED, not electricity. Something older, something colder. You walk toward it. At the bend in the tunnel, you see it. An iron door. No markings, no handle. Just a smudged symbol scratched into its surface. A mirror, cracked through its center. And stenciled beneath it, Chamber 40, Room 40. You press your hand against the door. It's warm, like breath held too long. You don't ask questions. Not anymore. You open it and step through. Room 40 isn't a room in the traditional sense. It's a space that remembers being a room. The walls shift subtly when you look too long, like they're adjusting themselves to your memories. The air is thick with the smell of lavender, burned film, and something metallic, like old coins or the ghost of electricity. You stand at the threshold, and for the first time since this all began, you hesitate. The floor stretches out like a corridor, but there are no lamps, no light fixtures. Only that same faint blue glow, radiating from cracks in the wall like veins under pale skin. You step forward. The music box in your coat clicks softly with each footfall, as though counting them. 10 steps in, the air changes. Not colder, just heavier. And ahead, the blue light forms a shape. A mirror, but not a hanging one. This is floor to ceiling, arched like a cathedral window. A thin layer of fog creeps along its surface, moving without source, erasing and revealing faint shapes behind the glass. You move closer. The reflection isn't your current self. It's you, but younger, standing in Elise's apartment, holding the first letter. Behind you in the reflection, Elise flickers in and out of focus. She's trying to speak, but the glass won't carry sound. Instead, the mirror offers you something else. A drawer opens, not in the room, in the reflection. Inside, a letter you never saw, but you can read it now backwards through the glass. To the one who didn't run, I saw what I wasn't supposed to. He doesn't exist in the usual way. He finds those who ask too many questions and gives them a choice. Stay and forget. Leave and remember. The story doesn't end, it just reassigns itself. You've been reading me, but I've been writing you. The mirror pulses. Then the reflection changes. Now it's Elise alone. She's older, more real than ever. She mouths something. You lean closer. She says, "Leave now, or take my place." And you understand. Room 40 isn't where stories are kept. It's where they're stored, preserved. When someone remembers too much, the room offers a trade. You step back. The walls whisper, not in language but rhythm, like a heartbeat from underground. You glance down. The gold key glows faintly in your coat, and the music box hums a single note, long, flat, decisive, like it's asking you something. Will you close the loop? Mainstream fact? The Paris catacombs contain countless undocumented chambers, many of which were used by resistance groups, cults, and secret societies. Though mapped in fragments, several recorded spaces don't correspond to modern blueprints. Fringe tidbit: some explorers claim certain chambers cause time doubling, where memories of future events imprint themselves during deep isolation. One account describes reliving a stranger's life, then finding a letter written in their own hand. Historians still argue whether memory can be geographically imprinted, or whether some places simply hold onto you longer than others. You press your palm to the mirror. The reflection fades. The glass goes dark, and then cracks. A single fracture splits it vertically, just like the mirror in Elise's room. The hum from the music box stops. You back away, breathing heavy, but the door behind you is gone. Room 40 has no exit, just a question, a choice, and your reflection now cracked, staring back, smiling first. You don't scream, you don't move, because now you understand. Room 40 isn't a punishment, it's a pivot, a place where a story shifts from being told to being lived. Your reflection, still cracked but smiling, tilts its head, then lifts a hand, a gesture you never make. Not a wave, not a threat, something else, an invitation. You check your own hand, still, motionless, the reflection's not following you anymore. It's leading. Behind the mirror, a door opens, but only in the reflection. Beyond it, shapes move like they're submerged in warm water, unfocused and slow, blinking through timelines that aren't synced yet. You see Elise again, and not just once. Multiple versions. Her in the blue dress. Her at age 17, eyes wide. Her much older, hair pulled back, wearing something modern, something too modern for 1962. Each one glances toward the glass. Each one mouths the same word. Run. The mirror pulses again. A crack zigzags across your reflection's face. You turn away, not out of fear but resolve. This isn't your loop. Not yet. You look for the music box. It's on the ground. Open. Empty. The key is gone. You feel a weight shift inside your coat pocket. You reach in. It's back. But now the key's changed. It's longer, intricate, and cool, like it hasn't been held in years. You look around the room, and for the first time you see it. A door in the wall opposite the mirror. Plain wood, brass handle, no label. You move toward it slowly, the walls breathing softer now, like they're holding back. You press your ear to the door. Silence. Then faintly a sound. Not footsteps, not voices, but typing. Rhythmic, mechanical, familiar. Typewriter. You turn the handle and step through. You're in a study. Books everywhere. Pages pinned to walls. String mapping connections between locations, Pigalle, Rue Cléry, Rue Houdon, Room 40. And at the center, a man. His back to you. sitting at a desk, typing steadily on a vintage machine. His hair is gray, his frame lean. You speak. Hello. He stops typing, doesn't turn around, just says, "You're late." You ask his name. He chuckles. "Does it matter?" You step closer. He moves aside, lets you read the page in the typewriter. And as they stepped into the final room, they realized this had never been Elise's story. It was theirs. And someone else was already reading it now. You stare, then blink. The man's chair is empty, still spinning slightly, and you're holding the key. Mainstream fact? Some 19th century novelists believed stories could become psychic anchors. If written with enough passion and obsession, they could create spaces in consciousness others might stumble into. This was called narrative haunting. Fringe tidbit? An obscure French shortwave broadcast from the 1980s transmitted serialized fiction, claiming to test narrative recursion. Listeners began reporting identical dreams, some involving blue dresses and cracked mirrors. Historians still argue whether stories shape culture, or if culture births stories that already existed in some collective unconscious loop. You sit down at the typewriter. The keys are warm. There's one page left in the stack, blank, and the title pre-filled at the top. The one who closed the loop. You exhale, set your fingers to the keys, and begin. You write the first line before realizing the typewriter isn't just mechanical. It's responsive, like it's guiding your hands, not resisting them, but shaping your phrasing with gentle resistance. As if memory itself is helping you through the parts that don't quite belong to you. She never meant to vanish, only to pause long enough to breathe. The page pulls slightly to the left. You adjust, continue. But in places like Paris, breathing too long in the wrong room can turn you into a story. You stop. The room pulses gently, not physically, just atmospherically. The way tension recedes after a held breath. The mirror behind you, the one that once crackled with fractured reflection, is quiet now, whole again, just a mirror, or something pretending very well. You stand, leaving the unfinished page in the typewriter. Then you notice the box on the desk, the one that wasn't there before, unmarked. You open it slowly. Inside, a stack of letters, all addressed differently, all signed, A.B., each envelope stamped with the same looping date. July 26th, every decade, 1952, 1953, 1954, 1955, and one more unstamped, still blank. Waiting, you realize now that she didn't just loop through time. She left notes for whoever came next. You are next. You reach for the final blank envelope, and a strange comfort settles in your chest. Like maybe this isn't about escaping. Maybe it's about documenting. You pull out your phone. It works now. Battery full. Date synced. You're back in your time. The mirror reflects you properly again. No smiles before your own. No cracks. And your phone pings with a new message. Let it rest. She's gone now. Mainstream fact? In 2015, a previously unknown room was discovered during the renovation of a Paris library. Inside were personal letters dated decades apart, all written in the same hand, none ever sent. The author was never identified. Fringe tidbit? French folklore tells of les passeurs d'histoire, storywalkers who unconsciously find their way into untold tales and are tasked with completing them. When they succeed, the story ends. When they don't, it repeats. Historians still argue whether these narratives truly self-propagate, or if humans simply find meaning in repetition that was never intentional. You exit the room. The door doesn't vanish behind you this time. Closes. Softly. Finally. You're back in the Paris, you know. Same traffic. Same noise. Same pigeons with questionable hygiene. But something's different. Not darker. Not broken. Just quieter. You walk to a bench near Montmartre. Pull out the blank envelope. And begin writing. Not to Elise. To the next you. Because someone always follows the letters. You just hope they like puzzles. And mirrors. And don't mind a little music box trauma. You lean back against the bench, letting your breath slow, your pulse quiet. The cool breeze lifts a strand of hair, brushes your skin, carries the distant scent of bread from a bakery closing up for the night. The city winds down softly, as if it, too, has just heard the last page turn. No music plays anymore. No cryptic notes buzz through your phone. The mirror in your mind no longer flickers. You're safe now. The loop, whatever it was, isn't yours anymore. Maybe it never really was. Maybe you were just a necessary echo, the last stitch in a seam long torn loose. Either way, the air feels lighter. The world feels closed, like a letter sealed and sent to no one in particular. Sometimes we get pulled into stories that need finishing. Not because we're chosen, not because we're special, but because we're available. And in the quiet afterward, once the names and timelines and smoky-eyed figures have faded back into their corners, we get to rest. That's all that matters now. You've left the letter. You've returned the key. You've closed the mirror. It's someone else's turn to find their reflection. Now take a deep breath. Feel the warmth around your shoulders. Let your muscles go loose. Let your eyes soften, your jaw unclench, your thoughts slow. You're home again. And Paris? Paris remembers everything for you now.